What occurs when you find yourself at the nadir of your existence, positioned in a barren meeting space, on the verge of finalizing the end of the previous 10 years of your life? Your former spouse is seated opposite, his limb casually placed around his fresh, youthful spouse, who is occupied examining her luxurious Rolex timepiece. He grins smugly as you affix your signature to the forms, informing you that you are an outdated artifact meant to remain trapped in bygone eras. You exit into the pouring downpour, completely crushed. Then your mobile device rings. It is an attorney from Harrington and Blake demanding your prompt attendance. You assume it is an error, but you attend. And that is when you learn that while your former spouse was displaying his new accessory, you were poised to receive a vast dominion. The atmosphere in the meeting space at Caldwell and Reed was the hue of diluted coffee and carried the odor of pricey, impersonal floor sanitizer. Olivia Grant sensed like a specter lingering at the location of her own downfall. For the previous 7 months, her existence had been a gradual, painful drain. Today marked the final wound. Opposite the extensive, gleaming surface of the oak desk was Nathan Harrington, the individual who had once vowed eternal commitment to her and had rather provided a carefully detailed inventory of their combined possessions, greatly tilted toward his benefit. He was not solitary. Attached to his limb was Brooke, his enhancement. Brooke was a harmony in taupe. Her woolen pullover, her fitted pants, her extraordinarily elevated stilettos, all in marginally varied tones of light brown and sand, a color scheme that proclaimed casual affluence. Her auburn locks were so skillfully tinted they resembled woven silk, and on her arm a platinum Rolex date just captured the gloomy midday illumination. She was not examining the official papers. She was appreciating the manner in which the jewels glittered. Nathan, in contrast, appeared as if he had been molded from the spreads of a gentleman's investment periodical. His Hugo Boss outfit suited him perfectly, and he exuded the arrogant, impregnable assurance of a man who had recently triumphed. And he had. He had siphoned their shared funds for 12 months to support his concealed existence with Brooke, then employed the finest legal expert's wealth could secure to guarantee Olivia, with her museum curator's income, would be overwhelmed by court expenses if she ventured to contest. "Can we hasten this?" Nathan inquired, his tone a polished tenor that Olivia now identified as an act. He motioned loosely toward her. "Some of us have a 3 o'clock reservation at Medina Country Club." Olivia's attorney, a compassionate but overwhelmed pro bono lawyer named Lisa, coughed lightly. "We are merely awaiting Ms. Grant to endorse the concluding separation pact, Mr. Harrington." As agreed, Olivia relinquishes all assertions to prospective income and support payments in return for the leftover 5 months on her residence rental and a single disbursement of $15,000. $15,000. It resonated like a slur, and it was intended as such. It was the price of Brooke's designer purse, which rested on the desk like an indulged companion. For Olivia, it was the slender barrier between endurance and poverty. Brooke emitted a refined, disinterested exhalation. Truly, the ordeals one must endure. It's all so antiquated. She pivoted to Nathan, her tone a saccharine murmur audible to the whole space. "Sweetheart, following your golf session, should we visit the showroom? The latest Mercedes in pearl ivory is absolutely exquisite." Olivia's palm, positioned on the record, quivered mildly. They had evaluated a practical Toyota the prior year before he departed, and he had claimed they could not manage it. The deceptions were so abundant, so stratified. They had constituted the core of their concluding years as a couple. Nathan inclined ahead, pinning Olivia with an expression of deep, stage compassion. "Just endorse it, Liv. It's for the optimal outcome. You can return to your artifacts, your ancient relics. It's where you fit." He reduced his volume, but the purpose was for it to resonate. "Let's be honest. You were perpetually more at ease in history. You're a curator. You safeguard items that are obsolete. It's your role. You were never designed for tomorrow, for this realm." The viciousness of it was astonishing. He had seized the one element she cherished, her enthusiasm for antiquity, for the narratives and heritages preserved, and contorted it into a pitiful flaw. He was portraying his disloyalty not as a shortcoming, but as her fate. Brooke contributed the ultimate crushing embellishment. She eyed Olivia's plain charcoal skirt, a garment she had possessed for 6 years, and then downward at her own gem-encrusted timepiece. Certain individuals are simply retro, I guess, and not in an appealing manner. A scorching, bitter fury surged up Olivia's esophagus. She desired to yell, to inform Brooke that her tomorrow was constructed on pilfered funds and an empty individual, to notify Nathan that he was a coward and a robber. But she recognized it would merely please them. It would be the frenzied response they anticipated from the lady they had so comprehensively abandoned. So she performed the sole action she could. She grasped the ornate, silver-plated stylus. She directed all her anguish, all her shame into the tip of that point. She gazed at the endorsement line, her designation printed below it. Olivia Grant, no longer Harrington. The designation had seemed like a disguise for a year. Now she was ultimately removing it. With a firm grip that concealed the turmoil within her, she endorsed. The pigment was dark and conclusive. She pushed the record across the desk. There, she stated, her tone subdued but distinct. It's completed. Nathan's countenance broke into a victorious smile. He rose, drawing Brooke upward with him. He did not trouble to examine the sheet. His attorney would manage the particulars. Splendid. Lisa, anticipate the electronic deposit within the hour. He hesitated and regarded Olivia one final time, the compassion returning to his gaze. Best wishes, Liv. I genuinely hope you discover your serene small niche in the world. They departed the space swiftly, leaving the aroma of Nathan's Tom Ford oud with fragrance and Brooke's overpowering botanical scent. A mist of costly disdain. Olivia remained seated, emptied inside, the $15,000 compensation feeling like 40 pieces of copper. For Olivia, it was a meager sum. Lisa touched her arm. You were remarkably composed in there, Olivia. Composed. She felt like an antiquated scroll that had just been deemed unimportant and slated for disposal. She collected her aged canvas briefcase and her jacket. She was solitary with 5 months to locate a new dwelling, a trifling amount to her designation, and a tomorrow that seemed as dull and vacant as the Chicago skyline outside. Her mobile device, a 4-year-old version with a network of fractures across the display, vibrated in her pouch. An unknown caller, likely a junk solicitation, attempting to market her an expanded vehicle guarantee she lacked. She nearly disregarded it, but impulsively, she responded, her tone a raspy murmur. Hello, am I communicating with Miss Olivia Grant? The tone on the opposite end was profound, official, and echoed with a traditional authority. It was the tone of someone who gauged time in eras, not reservations. Yes, this is she. Ms. Grant. My name is Reginald Pierce. I am a principal associate at Harrington and Blake. I am contacting you regarding the holdings of the deceased Mr. Elias Hawthorne. It is an issue of the greatest immediacy that I convene with you today. Could you arrive at our facilities at 200 South Wacker Drive within the hour? Olivia's thoughts malfunctioned. Harrington and Blake. That was one of the most influential, esteemed legal practices globally. And Elias Hawthorne. The designation was a phantom from her youth, her grandmother's alienated sibling, a secluded, nearly legendary person she had encountered precisely once at a family burial when she was 12. He had been a lofty, stern gentleman with eyes that appeared to perceive directly through you. He'd inquired what volume she was perusing, and when she displayed him a chronicle of the Tudors, he'd merely inclined his head, stated, "Heritage is a load," and departed. She hadn't observed or received word from him since. I believe you have the incorrect individual, she faltered. My great-uncle and I, we didn't acquaint each other. Ms. Grant, the tone stated with inflection of unyielding assurance. I can guarantee you, I do not have the incorrect individual. 1 hour. My aide will greet you in the entrance hall. The connection terminated. Olivia gazed at her fracture device, her pulse commencing to throb a peculiar fresh cadence. Elias Hawthorne, Harrington and Blake. It was absurd. A strange, universal jest on the most dreadful day of her existence. But then Nathan's concluding terms reverberated in her ears. You were perpetually more at ease in the past. A minuscule, unfamiliar ember kindled in the empty area where her spirit used to reside. For the initial occasion all day, it wasn't hopelessness. It was a glimmer of resistance. The cab journey from the Barron Loop office of Caldwell and Reed to the commanding core of the business sector felt like a voyage across a gulf. Each increment of the counter was a prompt of her unstable economic condition. The $15,000 compensation diminishing with every street. Olivia observed the metropolis smear past a precipitation-streaked panorama of gray and lights. She was functioning on an odd-separated automatic mode, propelled by a drive she couldn't designate. It was the identical intuition that made her, as a curator, pursue a dim path of pigment on a neglected chart. A inquisitiveness that temporarily superseded the overwhelming burden of her actuality. When the taxi halted at 200 South Wacker Drive, a shining spire of dark crystal and metal that seemed to penetrate the overhanging mists, she experienced a new surge of apprehension. This was the realm Nathan yearned for, a realm of giants who didn't need to exhibit their timepieces because they possessed the enterprises that produced the alloys. She compensated the show for the charge, making her purse lighter, and emerged onto the rain-slicked sidewalk. Before she could even comprehend her destination, a lady in a precise navy ensemble stepped out from beneath the structure's canopy. "Ms. Grant," the lady inquired, her grin courteous but lacking affection. "I'm Elena, Mr. Pierce's administrative aide. He's awaiting you." Elena guided her through an entrance hall of towering granite and muted, intentional quietude. They circumvented the primary guard station and were accompanied to a confidential lift area. Elena utilized the access card, and the lift rose with a noiseless, gut-dropping rapidity. The portals parted straight into the greeting zone of Harrington and Blake. It was less a workplace and more a noble chamber. The surfaces were covered with rich mahogany, adorned with gallery-standard artworks of urban vistas. The stillness was complete, interrupted solely by the far-off steady ticking of an enormous antique clock. "Mr. Pierce is in the primary meeting space," Elena stated, her footwear producing no noise on the luxurious, deep green rug. She opened one of the grand double portals for her. The meeting space was expansive. One whole barrier was a ground-to-ceiling pane, providing a stunning sweeping vista of Lake Michigan and the skyline. In the middle of the space was a desk that appeared as if it had been sculpted from a solitary massive slab of onyx. At the forefront of the desk, outlined against the striking heavens, stood a gentleman who flawlessly complemented his environment. Reginald Pierce was in his early 70s with a mane of white hair, a carefully groomed mustache, and sharp green eyes. He donned an impeccably customized three-piece ensemble of navy tweed that made Nathan's branded attire appear like an inexpensive imitation. "Grant," he stated, his tone the identical serene, commanding tenor from the call. "Thank you for arriving on such brief notice. Please take a seat." He indicated a solitary hide chair situated facing him. It felt less like a chair and more like a testimony platform. Olivia sat, positioning her aged briefcase on the ground next to her. It appeared like a wandering creature that had strayed into a mansion. "Mr. Pierce," she commenced, her tone quivering mildly. "I must state again, I'm nearly positive there's been an oversight. My great-uncle Elias detested casual conversation, seldom participated in family events, and hadn't been observed publicly since 2000. Mr. Pierce concluded for her, a spark of a grin touching his mouth. "I know I was his legal counsel, his advisor, and one of his scarce companions for the past 45 years. And he mentioned you, Miss Grant, not frequently, but with a particular and remarkable curiosity." Olivia was astonished into quietude. "He knew you'd selected a career in education." Mr. Pierce proceeded, his stare firm and evaluating. "He knew you became a curator. He once informed me, Olivia safeguards heritages. The remainder of the globe merely depletes them. He esteemed that. He viewed it as an indication of personality, a trait he discovered to be in sorrowfully limited availability. He knew about my profession." The notion was both perplexing and oddly moving, a mute, unseen supporter she never realized she possessed. Elias knew a great many things. Which leads us to the objective of this gathering. His countenance turned grave. "I'm sorry, I am the conveyor of sorrowful information. Elias departed peacefully in his slumber 4 days ago. He was 95 years old. His directives upon his passing were precise and total. The initial was to secure his holdings from all external questions. The second was to reach out to you." He grasped a substantial hidebound dossier on the desk and unlatched it. "This is a verified duplicate of Elias Hawthorne's ultimate testament and was executed 7 months ago. Olivia's pulse thumped against her chest. This was authentic. This was occurring. A vertiginous picture of Nathan and Brooke at their country club, chortling flashed through her thoughts. Did he bequeath me something? She inquired, her tone a murmur. A minor memento. An antique volume. A couple thousand would be a life-changing wonder at this moment. Mr. Pierce didn't respond straight. Instead, he regarded her with a strength that seemed to infiltrate her very ideas. Ms. Grant, to comprehend Elias, you must comprehend his life's endeavor. He was the originator and exclusive proprietor of Vanguard Industries. Olivia dimly identified the designation. It was an enormous privately owned syndicate, a mysterious colossus in the domains of resources, transportation, and innovation. They were infamously covert, never featuring in the ostentatious commerce journals. Their influence was subdued, fundamental, and enormous. Vanguard is not a publicly traded entity, Mr. Pierce clarified. As such, its worth is not vulnerable to market fluctuations. Nevertheless, a recent internal evaluation positions the cautious net value of its possessions at roughly $85 billion. The figure lingered in the atmosphere, so immense and theoretical it seemed to drain all the air from the space. Olivia felt dizzy. She clutched the sides of the chair to stabilize herself. Mr. Pierce continued, his inflection never fluctuating. Elias had no offspring. His other kin are remote relatives to whom he has bequeathed moderate but liberal endowments. He thought that unearned riches without intent was a corrupting affliction. He desired his dominion, his heritage, to be managed, not merely expended. He desired someone with a perception of antiquity of obligation, someone who grasped that the past must be protected to construct a meaningful tomorrow. He glided a solitary page of thick, ivory-tinted parchment across the refined desk. It was a manually scripted missive. The writing was angular but vigorous. Olivia, it started. If you're perusing this, my ledger is settled. Do not grieve for me. 95 years is ample. I encountered you only once, but I never overlooked the child reading about vanished dynasties while the remainder of the kin chattered. I have monitored your profession from a considerable distance. You selected an honorable, serene, and unremunerated vocation. You selected heritage over capital. For that, you have gained my admiration and now my load. Olivia gazed upward from the missive, her eyes broad with skepticism. Load, read the remainder. Mr. Pierce encouraged softly. Vanguard Industries is a mighty creature, and it is encircled by wolves who would rip it asunder for remnants. I am not providing you a hoard, my dear. I am providing you a crown and a realm filled with advisors and murderers. They will perceive you as feeble and irregularity. They will examine you. Do not permit them. Your abilities as a curator are more precious than any doctor in business. You know how to uncover the verity interred in piles of documents. You know how to detect a counterfeit, and you know the worth of a narrative that has persisted. This enterprise is my narrative. Do not let them obliterate it. He had endorsed it plainly. Elias. Tears stung at Olivia's eyes. This gentleman, she scarcely knew, had perceived more in her, comprehended more about her than the gentleman she had shared an existence with. Mr. Pierce allowed the gravity of the missive to settle before he conveyed the ultimate world-altering assertion. Miss Grant, Olivia, Elias Hawthorne has designated you the exclusive recipient of his complete holdings. You are the fresh proprietor of Vanguard Industries, and all its possessions, tangible and conceptual. You have received his wealth, his enterprise, his heritage, his load. The globe tilted on its pivot. The vista of the lake outside seemed to surge toward her, and then withdraw. It was a vision, a delusion induced by sorrow and tension. No, she murmured, shaking her cranium. That's unfeasible. I might have $15,000 to my designation, and 5 months before I'm without shelter. I organize 18th century artifacts for a livelihood. And that, Mr. Pierce stated, his tone softening with the initial suggestion of warmth, is exactly why he selected you. But there is a stipulation, a trial, as he termed it. Of course, there was perpetually a snag. Elias knew the executive council would attempt to consume you. He did not want you to merely sell off the possessions and withdraw. The testament specifies that for you to receive the holdings without conditions, you must take on the position of president of the Council of Vanguard Industries, and you must maintain that role effectively, repelling all oppositions for 1 complete fiscal year. He inclined forward, his countenance fervent. If you are compelled out by a ballot of distrust, or if you step down before the year concludes, the totality of the holdings, every cent, every innovation, every structure will be liquidated and contributed to the International Legacy Trust. You will be left with nothing. President, Executive Council. It was an alien dialect from an antagonistic world. The pure horror of it was immobilizing, but then a picture etched itself into her thoughts. Nathan's patronizing grin, Brooke's contemptuous glance at her timepiece, and his concluding lacerating terms. You're a curator. You safeguard items that are obsolete. A frigid, unfamiliar blaze began to ignite in her veins. Elias hadn't perceived her as a specialist in items that were obsolete. He perceived her as a protector of items that endured. She regarded Reginald Pierce straight in the eye, the tears on her own evaporating on her cheeks. Her tone, when she spoke, no longer contained the quiver of a sufferer. It was the subdued, stable tone of a curator who had just been presented the most vital record of her existence. When do I commence? The hours that ensued were a dreamlike trance condition. Reginald Pierce, with the composed proficiency of a gentleman habituated to reorganizing the foundational layers of authority, directed Olivia through the instant maelstrom. He described the organizational framework of Vanguard Industries, an expansive, intricate organization with concerns in everything from underwater shipping and orbital systems to eco-friendly farming and scarce metal entitlements. It was a tacit dominion, its sway experienced universally, but its designation uttered infrequently. The council will be your main obstacle, Pierce declared, his inflection somber. They are guided by the present chief executive, Victor Slade. He was Elias's apprentice for 35 years. He is ingenious, merciless, and he completely anticipated to be designated the inheritor. He will not perceive you as the fresh proprietor. He will perceive you as a clerical mistake to be rectified. Olivia heeded, assimilating the designations and the risks, her curator's intellect automatically generating a mental inventory of dangers and supporters. Victor Slade entered a category labeled adversarial. Mr. Pierce described that a media statement was a juridical requirement. The announcement of Elias Hawthorne's demise was a mystery known only to a select few, but it couldn't stay so. The disclosure of his passing, merged with the explosive news of his selected successor, would dispatch tremors through the economic realm. You will become a prominent individual instantly, Olivia, he cautioned. Your existence will be examined. They will attempt to unearth anything they can to undermine you. From this instant onward, your seclusion is a recollection. He organized for a vehicle to transport her back to her residence in Lincoln Park. Not a cab, but a black reinforced Lincoln Navigator that navigated through the urban congestion with the mute, unstoppable power of a predator. The chauffeur, a reserved gentleman named Robert, held the portal for her as if she were a leader of nation. The journey was quiet. Olivia gazed out at the metropolis, but she didn't observe the familiar monuments. She observed a game board, its elements immense and frightening, and she had just been positioned in the role of the monarch, exposed and omnipotent simultaneously. When she reached her humble vintage residence structure, the familiar solace of its aged entrance hall felt foreign. Inside her residence, the quietude was overwhelming. The phantoms of her existence with Nathan were omnipresent. The depression in the couch pillow where he perpetually sat, the vacant area on the shelf that used to contain his economics volumes. For 11 years, this location had been a dwelling. For the last 7 months, it had been a jail of recollections. Now, it was a gallery display of an existence that no longer persisted. She sat on her couch, the one with the mildly worn arm support, and extracted Elias's manually scripted missive. She perused it again, and then a third time. Your abilities as a curator are more precious than any doctor in business. You know how to uncover the verity interred in piles of documents. It wasn't merely a confirmation. It was a purpose declaration. He had provided her not only his wealth, but the precise perspective through which to exercise it. Her fractured smartphone vibrated. It was a message from Nathan. Hey, hope you're fine. Apologies if Brooke seemed a bit intense. She's just thrilled about our tomorrow. Let me know you receive the deposit. Beverage sometime. For old time's sake. The patronization was a tangible pressure bearing down on her. The proposal of beverages was a concluding tap on the cranium, a motion of generosity from the conqueror to the defeated. He desired to confirm she would vanish silently. She didn't respond. She pressed her digit on his contact, and with a feeling of deep conclusiveness erased it. The following morning the upheaval hit. As directed by Mr. Pierce, Olivia had set her old device on mute. He had supplied her with a fresh secure gadget along with a computer and a protected access to the Vanguard Industries records, electronic wealth of the Enterprise's Chronicle. At exactly 9:05 a.m., the economic realm convulsed. The media statement from Harrington and Blake went public. Elias Hawthorne, originator of Vanguard Industries, deceased at 95. Estate designates museum curator Olivia Grant as exclusive recipient and fresh president. Olivia's old device began to tremble on the side table. It didn't merely hum, it leaped, sliding across the timber like a frightened bug. The display illuminated with a tumbling cascade of alerts from information applications, social networks, and a deluge of communications from digits she didn't identify. The initial communication she responded to on her fresh device was from her mother in Texas. Her tone a panicked chirp of disbelief. "Olivia, is it accurate? The reports? They're claiming you. Oh heavens, they're claiming fortunes. Is this some sort of awful prank?" Olivia soothed her mother, vowing to clarify everything subsequently. The second communication was from her sibling, a college instructor in Denver, who was merely shrieking with a blend of astonishment and gleeful mirth. Then a communication arrived on her old device from a digit she still recalled by memory. "Nathan." She gazed at the display, her thumb lingering over the reject option, but a distinct intuition prevailed. The identical intuition that had made her accept Mr. Pierce's challenge. She needed to hear it. She needed to record this instant. She responded, but uttered nothing, heeding the interference on the connection. "Olivia. Olivia. Praise be. Are you viewing this? Is this genuine? It's on every screen in the exchange area. CNBC, Bloomberg. They're labeling you the curator successor. What in the world is happening?" His tone was a frantic, elevated disorder deprived of its customary smooth poise. "It's genuine, Nathan," she stated, her tone a tranquil level expanse, a moment of astonished quietude, then the noise of abrupt, uneven inhalation. "Heavens above," he murmured. His inflection altered immediately, becoming slippery, scheming, pressing. Okay, me, Olivia. You can't rely on these individuals, these attorneys, these business predators. They're going to attempt to seize everything from you. You don't comprehend this realm, but I do. I can shield you. We can handle this jointly." The pure, unadulterated boldness of it was a marvel to observe. Olivia reiterated the solitary term saturated with frost. "Yes, we contemplate it. I comprehend investments. You have the status. We were a duo. Olivia, don't you recollect yesterday? Yesterday was an error. I was under considerable strain. Brooke, she doesn't grasp our chronicle. That compensation, the $15,000, it was just a procedure. I was going to provide you more. I vow." He was a frantic, pitiable deceiver. And for the initial occasion she perceived him, not with the remaining ache of affection, but with the frigid, distinct eye of a chronicler evaluating an unsuccessful commander. "You stated I belong in the past, Nathan," she stated gently, rotating the blade he himself had crafted. "You stated I was an artifact. Why would you desire an artifact as associate? I didn't intend it that way. I was attempting to inspire you. I perpetually knew you had this capability in you, this concealed fortitude." He stammered, his hopelessness evident. She heard a piercing tone in the backdrop. "Nathan, who are you conversing with? Is it her? What is occurring? Maya just sent me a piece from the Sun-Times." "Just a moment, dear," Nathan whispered, his palm failing to silence the noise. "Olivia, heed me. We must convene tonight. We can repair this. I can repair this. I'll discard Brooke. It was perpetually you, Olivia. It was perpetually you." The final remnant of her sorrow, the lingering phantom of the affection she'd had for him, dissipated in that instant, burned by the intense warmth of his avarice. He hadn't merely betrayed her. He had never even known her. "Farewell, Nathan," she stated, her tone lacking all feeling. "No, wait, Olivia. Don't disconnect. We could be influential. more influential than you can envision. Olivia? She terminated the communication. Promptly, he communicated again. She rejected. He communicated once more. She deactivated the old device for the ultimate occasion. She rose and proceeded to the pane. Outside her structure, an information vehicle from Channel 7 was halting at the curb. A journalist was already preparing a recorder. The blockade had commenced. Her previous existence was finished. It had been endorsed away yesterday, but only now was it genuinely absent, scorched by the ascending dawn of her fresh actuality. She was no longer Olivia Grant, the abandoned spouse. She was Olivia Grant, the president of Vanguard Industries, and she had a dominion to master. The days that ensued were a trial by fire. Olivia's serene Lincoln Park residence became an opulent jail, besieged by a persistent mob of journalists and photographers. Reginald Pierce, foreseeing this, coordinated her removal with the accuracy of a military maneuver. In the depths of night, she was relocated into a vast, multi-level home at the summit of the Willis Tower with its own exclusive ingress and protection team. The home was a universe distant from her volume-filled residence. It was a sparse masterpiece of stone crystal and subdued hues with sweeping vistas of Millennium Park that felt more like an imitation than actuality. It was stunning, barren, and deeply isolated. It was Elias Hawthorne's Chicago abode, a location he hadn't visited in 12 years. Olivia's fresh existence was an organized 16-hour-a-day immersion program in being a tycoon. Her mornings were expended with instructors, a retired Kellogg educator for economics, a former ambassador for enterprise management, a stern lady who instructed her safety measures. Her afternoons were expended with Reginald Pierce analyzing the intricate structure of Vanguard Industries. But her nights were her own, and in the serene isolation of her crystal spire. She did what she did best. She wanted records. The Enterprise's electronic records were her refuge. For hours she would peruse through decades of council sessions, records initiative suggestions, internal communications, and most importantly, Elias's personal exchanges. She began to perceive the Enterprise not as a business body, but as a living chronicle. She perceived the daring hazards Elias took in the initial days, the disloyalties he endured, the loyalties he nurtured. She perceived his vision develop from an eager, ambitious venture to a worldwide force with a profound, almost medieval sense of accountability. In his missives, she perceived his increasing disenchantment with the contemporary globe's fixation on immediate gain. They are demolishing the monuments to vend the bricks he inscribed to a companion in one missive. And she perceived the ascent of Victor Slade, his designation appearing repeatedly. First as ingenious young examiner, then as a merciless section leader, and ultimately as the chief executive, his communications growing progressively centered on periodic yields and investor worth, a dialect Elias himself seemed to seldom employ. She perceived the gradual, subtle alteration in the Enterprise's essence. Her initial council session was planned for the subsequent week. Pierce cautioned her it would be a trap. Victor will attempt to make you appear like an idiot, he stated during one of their meetings. He will introduce something intricate, something filled with terminology, and require an instant resolution. He wants to demonstrate to the council that you are a vacant outfit, a temporary figure. Your initial examination is to not seize the lure. The days preceding the session were a whirlwind of readiness. Olivia scarcely rested her thoughts a storm of economic phrases and business regulations. The communal examination was unyielding. Nathan and Brooke had launched a comprehensive publicity campaign portraying themselves as the sorrowful, worried relatives. The society page of the Chicago Tribune ran a narrative with the headline "Tycoon Successor, Psychologically Vulnerable Concerns Former Spouse." In the piece, an informant near the pair asserted Nathan was concerned the abrupt riches had induced a psychological collapse and that he was investigating his choices to safeguard her from herself. It was an evident communal menace, the initial step in an effort to proclaim her incapable to handle her own matters. Olivia felt the strain in closing. The isolation of her status was immense. She had no companions in this fresh realm, only staff and opponents. The council was a serpent's lair of changing loyalties, and Victor Slade was the viper, enchanting them all. She knew she couldn't combat him on his conditions. He was an expert of business conspiracy. She had to combat him on hers. Her sole possible supporter was a gentleman she had only perused about in the records, Dr. Felix Slade, Victor's elder, alienated relative. Felix was the leader of Vanguard's long-term exploration and advancement section, a semi-independent innovation lab that Elias had supported individually. Felix was an ingenious, unconventional researcher accountable for some of the enterprise's most vital innovations, but he was openly scornful of the business culture Victor had established. Elias's notations described Felix as the only individual here who still gazes at the cosmos. Olivia arranged a gathering with him, not in the barren council space, but at his laboratories in suburban Illinois. The site was a stark contrast to the downtown offices. It was a disorganized, expansive grounds of conservatories, ateliers, and laboratories buzzing with subdued, concentrated vitality. Dr. Felix Slade was a gentleman in his 70s with an untamed mane of white hair, a creased lab garment, and eyes that gleamed with intense cleverness. He saluted her not with a clasp, but by displaying her a model for a fresh air filtration mechanism driven by wind power. Victor thinks this is a squander of funds, Felix stated, his tone a harsh rumble. There's no periodic revenue in providing pure air to impoverished communities. He'd prefer we create a fresh type of gadget. Elias supported this section for a purpose, Olivia stated, examining the complex apparatus. Felix's keen eyes evaluated her. So, the curator has been perusing. Inform me, what do you truly desire? Ms. Grant, you've endured your initial clash with my relative. Remarkable, but he's an enduring hunter. He's encircling you right now, awaiting for you to hemorrhage. I want to succeed, Olivia stated plainly. I want to respect Elias's heritage, not the rendition of it Victor has fabricated. But I can't accomplish it solitary. Victor has the council. He has the framework. I have a Chronicle volume. Chronicle is an armament, my dear Felix stated with ironic grin. If you know where to search. Victor has one great vulnerability. He believes he is more intelligent than everyone else. He has become conceited, and conceited men leave traces. He guided her to his workspace, a cluttered area overflowing with volumes and designs. He extracted a dusty container from storage. These are Elias's old initiative documents from the 70s and 80s. The physical duplicates. He never completely trusted the electronic records. He said parchment has a recollection that electronics overlook. Victor has no notion these still exist. If he's been evading regulations, if he's been concealing his errors, the proof will be in here. It will be your armament. Olivia expended the subsequent week in that dusty workspace, her hands coated in document particles, feeling more comfortable than she had in months. She cross-checked the tangible documents with the electronic entries, and gradually a design of deceit began to surface. Victor Slade had a chronicle of enduring initiatives that were his concept, but had failed transferring the fault and the monetary deficits to other sections. More condemning, he had utilized facade enterprises, a method she learned about from Elias's notations on his own initial bold procurements, to buy innovations from struggling creators and then vend them back to Vanguard at an enormous premium. It was a refined, prolonged plot of self-aggrandizement concealed beneath layers of business intricacy. While she was assembling her armament against Victor, she knew she had to address the communal menace of Nathan. The perpetual media assaults were eroding the council, making her appear feeble and unstable. Olivia felt the pressure in closing. She directed Reginald Pierce to employ the most merciless confidential examination agency in the nation. I want to know everything about Nathan and Brooke, she stated, where their funds are originating from their authentic chronicles. I want the verity, the type of verity that doesn't get published in the society pages. The account returned a week subsequently. It was a slender, ruinous record. Nathan, profoundly indebted from supporting his lifestyle with Brooke, had been participating in confidential dealings, using data from his organization to generate unlawful gains. Brooke, whose actual designation was Brittany Cole from Kansas, had a chronicle of linking herself to affluent gentlemen. The Rolex Datejust was a present from a wedded tech magnate she was involved with before Nathan. And the pregnancy, the delivery date, made it evident the child couldn't possibly be Nathan's. The concluding element of the enigma was a sequence of electronic deposits. A facade enterprise registered in the Bahamas had been making consistent large disbursements to Nathan. a facade enterprise that Felix Slade helped Olivia trace back to a secret fund controlled by Victor Slade himself. It all aligned into clarity. Nathan wasn't merely an opportunistic former spouse. He was a compensated agent. Victor was financing Nathan's communal defamation effort to provide concealment for his own eventual business overthrow. He was waging a conflict on two fronts, and Olivia was the objective. The frigid fury that filled her was illuminating. They had all treated her like a figure in a narrative they were composing. A sorrowful successor, a fragile sufferer, an incapable curator. It was time for her to compose her own conclusion. The ideal platform for the ultimate scene presented itself. The yearly Art Institute Gala as a main benefactor. Vanguard Industries' seating was a stronghold of authority, and Olivia knew her adversaries would be there. Victor Slade would be commanding attention, and he would certainly have organized for Nathan and Brooke to participate a communal exhibition of their unhallowed partnership designed to degrade her on the global platform. They anticipated her to be a fragile curator, easily shattered. They were about to encounter the sovereign. Olivia had expended the prior weeks assembling her armament. Dr. Felix Slade had helped her unearth a document trail of Victor's 16-year plot of misappropriation using facade enterprises to enrich himself at the enterprise's cost. Simultaneously, the confidential examiner sheet employed had delivered a ruinous dossier on Nathan and Brooke detailing his confidential dealings and the sordid verity about Brooke's past, her false pregnancy schedule, and the origin of their funding. Victor Slade himself. The plot was a tidy, condemning loop. On the evening of the gala, Olivia, transformed. She arrived in a robe of deep emerald satin by Valentino, strict and majestic. Around her neck was the hawthorn emerald, a perfect 60-carat gem that emanated a cold green blaze. When she stepped onto the crimson pathway, the photographers, anticipating a timid curator, were stunned into a madness. Inside she found them exactly as she'd foreseen. Victor, Nathan, and Brooke reveling in the radiance of pretended worry and genuine authority. As she neared, a silence descended. Olivia, Victor thundered, projecting for the spectators of observers. So pleased you attended. Nathan and I were just discussing how concerned we all are. Nathan advanced, his countenance a veil of grief. Liv, you appear exhausted. This is all excessive for you. Olivia allowed the quietude to linger for an instant before she spoke, her tone cool and distinct. That's moving, Nathan, and I'm so pleased to see you both appearing so healthy. That must be quite a liberal allowance Victor is disbursing you from his Bahamas account, the identical one he uses to cleanse the funds he's been misappropriating from Vanguard for 16 years. A collective inhalation rippled through the assembly. Victor's countenance turned to marble. Olivia didn't hesitate. As for you, Nathan, she stated, her tone descending, but losing none of its sharpness. The FTC will be reaching your organization in the morning. Your associate at the investment group has already consented to collaborate regarding your minor confidential dealing plot. Finally, she pivoted to Brooke, who was pallid with astonishment. And Brittany, she stated, using her authentic designation like armament. I do hope your real child father is prepared to cover your expenses. Nathan's accounts are about to be sealed. By the way, the Rolex is a counterfeit. A good one, but a counterfeit. She had not elevated her tone. She had simply presented her inquiry calmly and systematically, like a curator presenting her discoveries. She rotated and departed, leaving a scene of mute, stunned terror in her wake, their existences and deceptions utterly disassembled in the heart of Chicago society. At the summit of the grand stairway, Reginald Pierce was awaiting. Checkmate, I believe, he stated softly. The consequences were instant and total. The morning following the gala, a destroyed Victor Slade offered his resignation at an urgent council session. Olivia refused it. A resignation suggests you have an option. Victor, she stated, her tone cold alloy. You don't. The council voted unanimously for his dismissal for reason, and as guards escorted him from the space, his corrupt period ended. Days subsequently, Nathan was charged by the FTC. His communal image shattered alongside his finances. The year that ensued was one of deep change. Olivia didn't just operate Vanguard Industries. She curated it. She guided the corporate giant toward intent-driven revenue, launching the Elias Hawthorne Endowment for Antiquarian Protection and fully supporting Dr. Felix Slade's pure air initiative. She demonstrated that honesty was not a hindrance, but Vanguard's greatest possession, earning the profound esteem of a once doubtful economic realm. A year and a day after her existence was overturned, she stood in the newly consecrated Elias Hawthorne Study Area at the Chicago Public Library. "He would be so proud of you," Reginald Pierce stated quietly beside her. Olivia observed a young girl in a corner, completely engrossed in an antiquity volume, and understood her true reception. It was never the funds. It was the fortitude she had discovered within herself. Nathan had called her a curator of the obsolete, an artifact stuck in the past. He was mistaken. She was a guardian of heritage, using the insight of Chronicle to build an enduring tomorrow. Her work was just commencing. And so, Olivia Grant, the subdued curator, became one of the most influential people globally. Her narrative is a potent reminder that the abilities we cultivate in the serene moments of our existences, our enthusiasms, our knowledge, our honesty can become our greatest armaments when we are tested. She didn't just achieve revenge. She redefined an entire dominion, proving that true authority isn't about being the loudest tone in the space, but the most prepared. What did you think of Olivia's epic dismantling at the Art Institute Gala? Was it the perfect retribution? And what do you think is the most important part of a person's heritage? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you were inspired by Olivia's incredible journey from heartbreak to head of the council, please show your support by hitting that like button. It helps our channel bring more stories like this to you. And if you don't want to miss the next dramatic tale of vindication and triumph, be sure to smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Share this story with anyone who has ever been underestimated. Thank you for listening.